Dear students, we continue with the discussion of histology of female reproductive system, and today we will discuss three topics, that is histology of cervix of uterus, histology of vagina, and histology of female external genitals. This diagram shows the gross anatomical features of the uterine cervix and the uterus and vagina, just to make you familiar with their interrelationship so that you can understand the histology which we are going to discuss next. So you see there is uterus, then there is cervix uteri, then there is vagina, and if you concentrate on cervix uteri, you see it is projecting into the vagina, and this projecting part of the cervix is called ectocervix, and it is covered by a mucosa which is called ectocervical mucosa, which is shown green in this diagram. And inside the cervix there is a canal which is called cervical canal or endocervical canal, and this endocervical canal communicates with the uterus by internal os or internal opening, and with the vagina through external os or external opening. So this is just to make you familiar with the endocervical canal, ectocervix, internal os and external os, and the interrelationship of cervix or uterus with the cervix proper and with the. So let us take up cervix uteri. Now we have just seen that cervix is the lowermost conical part of the uterus, and it projects into vagina, and through it runs the cervical canal or endocervical canal, and there are two openings, one on the upper end of the cervical canal which is internal os, and one at the lower end where it opens into the vagina which is called external os. The cervix, bulk of its wall does not consist of smooth muscle as compared to the wall of the uterus. Bulk of the wall of the cervix consists of dense connective tissue which contains collagen fibers, of course, but a large number of elastic fibers. Very rich amount of elastic fibers is present in this cervix uteri, and there are few smooth muscle fibers. Why there is large amount of the elastic tissue and very few smooth muscle fibers? The reason is that the cervix has to dilate at the time of delivery of the baby to an enormous size to allow the delivery of the head of the baby and body of the baby, and then it has to return back to its original size, and this is brought about by the elastic fibers. Elasticity of cervix is a special feature, and this is imparted to the cervix by means of large number of elastic fibers which are present in its connective tissue. So then coming to the histology proper, the mucosa, I've told you, lining the endocervical canal is called endocervical mucosa, and the mucosa covering the ectocervix is called ectocervical mucosa. The endocervical mucosa, 2 to 3 millimeters thick, of course, but important thing to note is that this mucosa, although it is continuous with the mucosa of the uterus, this does not undergo cyclical structural changes which occur during menstrual cycle. So it does not undergo the 4 phases of menstrual cycle. It does not slough off. It is not lost at menstruation. It does not undergo, because it is not lost, it does not undergo any damage during menstruation. So obviously it does not undergo any regenerative phase or proliferative phase or premenstrual phase. So this is important to know, that the endocervical mucosa does not take part in the cyclic structural changes which occur in the endometrium. Itself, the endocervical mucosa is lined by simple columnar epithelium. And of course, under the epithelium, there is supporting lamina propria, consisting mainly of loose connective tissue. The simple columnar epithelium itself is also mucosecreting, but the important thing is that the lamina propria contains numerous branched, quite large mucosecreting glands, which are called cervical glands. And these glands open by their ducts into the endocervical canal, and these glands produce secretion which passes into the cervical canal, and this secretion passes down out of the cervix into the vagina to lubricate vagina. This is important to know that, as we will discuss later, of course, the vagina does not have any glands. No glands are present in the vagina. The lubrication of vagina is brought about by the secretions of the cervical glands. So these secretions which are produced in the cervix, they trickle down, pass into the vagina and lubricate it. This is a section through the cervix. There is endocervical canal in the center, and on each side of the endocervical canal you can see many branch tubular glands in the lamina propria, and then you can see that the ectocervix is covered by ectocervical mucosa, and at the junction of endocervical and ectocervical mucosa there is transformation zone. This is a very important zone which lies just inner to the external os, and this is a region of great clinical importance which we'll discuss in the next. So this slide shows the transformation zone. On the left side is the ectocervical epithelium, which is the same epithelium as that of vagina, stratified squamous non-cornified epithelium. And on the right side, there is epithelium of the endocervix, which is the simple columnar epithelium. Of course, it is mucus secreting. The junction of stratified squamous and simple columnar epithelium, which lies just inner to the external os, this is called transformation zone. This is clinically very important. So what is the clinical importance of transformation zone? So in some ladies, especially in ladies which are in the higher age group after 40, 45, 50 and so on, as age increases, there is a greater chance of replacement of epithelium in the transformation zone. This is called metaplasia. Replacement of one type of epithelium by another type of epithelium is called metaplasia. So what happens in the transformation zone? Sometimes, of course, not always, in some ladies, the simple columnar epithelium becomes replaced by stratified squamous non-cornified epithelium in the transformation zone, and this is called metaplasia, of course. And the metaplasia is a precancerous condition, and if left untreated, if it not diagnosed in time, then it can lead to cancer. It can lead to carcinoma of cervix. That epithelium which has become metaplastic undergoes cancerous changes, and then it becomes cancer and carcinoma of cervix. So you can very well understand that the transformation zone is of extreme clinical importance. Then we come to the histology of vagina. So being a tubular organ, it consists of three coats: mucosa muscularis and adventitia. A mucosa is lined by vaginal epithelium, which is the same epithelium as that of the ectocervix, that it is stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium. And a special feature of the cells of the stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium of vagina is that they contain glycogen granules. That is a special feature. Nowhere else in skin or in other, in the esophagus, the cells of the stratified squamous epithelium, they do not contain any glycogen, but the stratified squamous epithelial cells of the vagina, they contain glycogen. And what is the importance of glycogen? This we are going to discuss next. When these cells are shed, obviously we know that the epithelial surfaces, they shed their superficial cells continuously, especially so in the stratified squamous epithelium. When the cells are shed, the glycogen is released, and the bacteria, that is the vaginal flora, which normally resides in, these bacteria normally reside in the vagina, they metabolize the glycogen and lactic acid is formed. And due to formation of acid, the vaginal pH becomes acidic, low pH. And what is the benefit of this low pH? So this prevents the growth of fungi especially, and also it kills the pathogenic bacteria. So the infection of vagina, so the fungal infection of vagina is quite well known among the clinicians. Due to certain reasons, the pH of the vagina may become high, and when it becomes high, does not remain acidic, or it goes up, then the fungi, they attack the vagina. So this acidic pH of vagina has a great protective role over the vaginal epithelium. So then the vascularis of vagina is nothing much special. Consists of two layers of smooth muscle, inner circular and outer longitudinal. And the adventitia of the vagina is quite thick because it binds the vaginal wall to the surrounding structures, and obviously there is connective tissue. It is a dense connective tissue, contains elastic fibers, and then it also contains the blood vessel, lymphatics, and nerve vagina. So this is a low power diagram of a section of vagina where you can see the mucosa, which consists of the lining stratified squamous epithelium. Under that is the lamina propria, which projects into the epithelium as small papillae, as is the case in the skin also. There we know the dermis projects into the stratified squamous epithelium in the form of papillae. Same is the case here. You can see the projections of lamina propria, connective tissue of the lamina propria into the lining stratified squamous epithelium in the form of papillae. Then there is mucosa, and mucosa has below the mucosa is the muscularis. But you must notice the mucosa that no glands are present in the lamina propria. No glands are there. Epithelium and just connective tissue. Below that is the lamina propria, and together they form this mucosa. Then there is muscularis, which consists of two layers of smooth muscle, inner circular, outer longitudinal, and then you can see the thick adventitia, and you can also see the sections of blood vessels and lymphatic vessels which are running in this dense fibrous connective tissue, which binds the vagina to the surrounding structures. This is a high power diagram of a section of vagina. You can see very well the stratified squamous epithelium, which is non-cornified, because even the both superficial cells show nuclei, so we know that there is no cornification. In cornified epithelium, the superficial cells are dead and don't have any nuclei. So this is stratified squamous, non-cornified epithelium, but quite thick epithelium to protect the underlying tissues. And one thing that you will notice that the cells are appearing empty. There are large whitish spaces, vacuoles in the cells. This is because during preparation of the tissue for staining, the glycogen which was present in these cells has been washed out, and the cells appear empty, and this emptiness shows that these cells contained glycogen while in the living condition. And I've told you that already explained to you the importance of glycogen in these cells. And next to the epithelium is labia propria, which is projecting into the epithelium in the form of elevations or papillae. And then there is the muscularis, which is the smooth muscle consisting of two layers, inner circular and outer. Then we take up our last topic in the uh, genital system for today. Of course, next time we will take the mammary gland, which is also part of the female genital system, but the external genitalia or today's last topic to be discussed. The external genitalia or external genital organs of the female, they consist of labia majora, labia minora, clitoris and vestibule. The labia majora are two folds of skin and each of them forms one lateral boundary of the urogenital cleft. They are the forming the lateral most boundaries of the urogenital cleft. And they have outer surface and they have inner surface. Outer surface bears thick, coarse, curly hair, but the inner surface is hairless. In the center, in the core of the central region or core of each labia majus contains fat and a few smooth muscle fibers may be present, but mainly fat. That forms the core of the labia majus. Inner to the labia majora, there are two smaller lip-like structures which are called labia minora. They are also covered by skin which is completely non-hairy, and these labia minora form the lateral walls of a space called vestibule, which we will discuss next. And the core of each labia minus contains connective tissue and blood vessels, not fat. That is mainly connective tissue, ordinary connective tissue, not as adipose tissue. So next topic in the external genitalia of the female is the clitoris. So developmentally or biologically, the clitoris is analogous to the phallus of the male or penis of the male. So if you have some remembrance of the histology of the penis, then you can understand the histology of the clitoris as well. So like the penis, the clitoris also consists of masses of erectile tissue. But in the penis, there are three masses of erectile tissue, while in the clitoris, there are only two masses. Of course, they are much smaller than that of penis. In the penis, the masses are two corpora cavernosa and one corpus spongiosum. But in the clitoris, as you can see in this slide, the clitoris just consists of two small masses of erectile tissue, which are called corpora cavernosa. And like the male, the corpora cavernosa of the female also end in a small dilated tubercle-like structure which is called glans clitoridis or glans of the clitoris. Like glans of the penis, the clitoris has its glans which is called glans clitoridis. And the corpora cavernosa of course consists of cavernous or erectile tissue into which the blood can accumulate to make it rigid and erect, and when the impulses are over, then it becomes emptied, and as the cavernous tissue becomes emptied, the structure becomes flaccid once again. Outer to the corpora cavernosa is present the skin, so there is no tunica albuginea here. It is a thin skin which is completely non-hairy, and this skin is richly supplied by sensory nerves. Then we come to the vestibule, which is the space between the two labia minora, and this receives the opening of female urethra and vagina, and the vestibule is lined by stratified squamous non-cornified epithelium meaning that epithelium which is lining the vagina, which is lining the ectocervix. It's the same epithelium, same kind of epithelium which lines the vestibule of the external genitalia, stratified squamous, non-codified epithelium. Beneath the epithelium is present some connective tissue, and then this connective tissue are present glands, which are mucus secreting glands, and these glands are minor vestibular glands, which are many. So numerous minor vestibular glands, their ducts open into the vestibule, but there are two, that is a pair of major vestibular glands lying on each side of the opening of vagina. These glands are called major vestibular glands or Bartholin's glands, and the ducts of these glands open on the side of the vaginal introitus or opening of vagina, and they produce their mucoid secretion and release it into the vestibule. The purpose of the major vestibular glands and minor vestibular glands is to lubricate the vestibule and also to lubricate vagina, because this mucus secretion also passes into the vagina through the vaginal introitus or opening of vagina. Because vagina does not have any glands of its own, so it is lubricated by mucus from the cervical glands of the cervix uteri and from secretions of the major vestibular glands and minor vestibular glands. So next time we will take the last component of the female reproductive system, that is the mammary glands. So till then, I hope you will study this one and what is to be discussed.